Hey guys, it's Josh. Today I'm going to cover Spark Riders 3000, and I'm going to try to cover this as quick as possible. This video is probably going to be very unedited because we have 19 hours left in the campaign, and I tried to make a video yesterday, and I ended up just going way too into detail and rambling a bit and stuff, and so I'm going to try to just kind of do this in one shot and get it up quickly for you because I want to talk about this game since I've played it now a couple times, and I want to talk about the new expansion as well. Obviously, anything crowdfunding right now, be extra careful and backing things. Only back things that you really believe in and want to support. The situation, of course, is ever changing in the U.S. And I guess this really applies mostly to U.S. backers. But with that out of the way, let's get to the Gamefound campaign page, and we'll talk about Spark Riders. So this is a reprint of the base game, and it also adds a new expansion called Galactic Modules. So I guess first off, Galactic Modules is going to be exclusive to this crowdfunding campaign. I don't think they're going to be selling it as well. It looks like some of the add-on content here. There's a crowdfunding gift for those that are returning and those that followed early, or I guess just all backers. So let's talk about what Spark Riders is. At this point, I've only played it solo and co-op 2-player. And so my experience, is going to be coming from that. I would love to play it at a higher player count, and I think it's actually probably better at a higher player count, and maybe you'll see why once I start explaining this. So Spark Riders 3000, you are members of this spaceship, the Spark, and there are various adventures that you're going to be going on that are all voice acted and narrated through this app here. And so this game does require an app, and you need to factor that into your buying decision. The app is like extremely well done though, and like I just mentioned, all of the voice acting and the writing and stuff, it's very professional. It's pretty goofy, and I enjoy it. So in this game, it is, like I said, you're members of this spaceship, and you're going to be coming across various threats that pose risk to your mission. And so some of those threats, of course, like the immediate ones, are alien ships firing at you. And you'll have to man the turrets to take them down. If you don't, you'll see like your ship will be on fire. You can kind of see this card here. And if it takes damage while on a code red, that entire part of the ship will blow up and no longer be a part that you can access. And so obviously you don't want to let that happen. Yeah, and so as you go along, players will be taking turns where they have a movement, an action, and a help action that they can drop for another player. And so movement is 1 of 3 spaces. An action could be like piloting or shooting from a turret, or tinkering, like repairing or building a new turret or something of that nature, repairing the thrusters, that sort of stuff. And then the cool thing about this game that is sort of unique is this help action token. You can kind of see one behind this character here, where you leave this behind for another player, and they can choose to use it on their turn to re-roll a dice or take some special help action that your character provides. And so overall, the game is very free-flowing, and that's another kind of benefit where there aren't necessarily turns. You sort of discuss as a team what you want to accomplish and what you think the plan is, and then you sort of execute on that. And so you can kind of interrupt other players' actions, I guess, with your own. And so let me give you an example, right? We could have one character move over here, shoot. Let's say actually this character's in this room. So he's going to shoot this turret at the aliens, and then he could move over here and drop his help token, and then this person could take their help token. And that was a bad example because they didn't interrupt each other. But what I mean to say is this person could start doing their action, and then this guy could do his move action to drop his help token in the middle of that action. So you could move, have another character take their action, then take your action, and so on, right? Like it's all kind of up to you. And that's why I think that having more players will ultimately be a better experience because you just have more options. At lower player count games, you have the ship's computer iris helping you out and giving you some actions that they'll do sort of as a third automa player. So yeah, that's the game. It gives me feelings or shades of I don't know if you've played the Plaid Hat games, the Crossroads ones, the Forgotten Waters and Freelancers, and now Wandering Galaxy, I think it's called, where the app narration and the storytelling is all very funny, very goofy, and yeah, well done. Like this game gives me that as well, mixed with a crisis management game like Pandemic or Marvel United, where things are piling up and you have to go put out the fires. And so overall, it's a pretty light and accessible game. I think it can kind of be played by anybody, even non-gamers, right? And especially because it's co-op. Yeah, you're not going to have the issue where they don't know what to do and they have to ask and reveal their strategy and that sort of stuff because everybody's working together. So yeah, it's a pretty light and accessible game, but it's not necessarily super easy either. So it's not just like a walk in the park, right? It's kind of like Marvel United, where you can definitely lose. Every time I've played, my ship has not come back in one piece. So, but I have been able to win, and I've only played the first mission, so I'm not sure how the other missions are, if they're more difficult, and that sort of thing. But even in the first mission, I was not coming back in one piece. And so this new expansion adds a ton of new stuff. So let's scroll down. In the base game, the only things you can really build are new turrets and upgrades to those turrets, as well as a force field, which will help protect you from oncoming damage. So kind of the big thing that this expansion adds is the ability to replace entire rooms with upgraded versions of those rooms that give you new actions. And so we can see like this replaces a room that adds a second turret slot and I think another armor spot. So you can kind of have a heavily defended one room that you just make sure to protect that all of your turrets can be in. This one adds a hacking deck where you're trying to roll the right symbols and will give you some bonuses. A radar. Typically in the game, there's only one, you can only take one pilot action a turn. And this looks like you can do a second pilot action with another character. So that can be very useful. Cafeteria lets you store dice for later. So you can, if you happen to have some downtime, then you could roll some shooting dice and kind of lock them in there and use them once you need, that last hit. So that can be very useful. Prosperity module. This lets you trade prosperity cards. Typically, these are the gear ones, which are kind of like passive upgrades to your character. Like it'll give you an extra dice when doing piloting actions or +1 to shooting actions, that sort of stuff. These are typically locked to your character. And so this, you might have something end up on the wrong character, like the person who's the gunner might not get that +1 to shooting. And so this room will let you have some flexibility in trading those around. So that can be very useful. And then finally, this Inferno adds some extra thruster spots, which the overall goal of the missions is usually to cover some amount of distance to go somewhere. And your thruster levels will be how much distance you're covering per round. And so it's kind of progressing the objective. So if you have more thrusters, you're progressing the objective faster. So that's one thing that this expansion adds, kind of the main thing, like I said. And it seems like you use like the building upgrading method to build those, right? So you're using components that you get from defeating alien enemy ships to upgrade these rooms, and they replace just the basic room on the board. Additionally, it adds some new characters, and the characters in this game all have a unique ability, something that sets them apart, something that only they can do. And then, like I mentioned, they have some help abilities that when another character picks up their help token, they get something unique. Usually, it's kind of in the theme of this character. So, for example, Phil, the dog here, he basically gets advantage on rolls. So he gets to roll 2 dice and then pick which one he wants to use. And his bottom help action gives that ability to another player. And so that's very cool. And then the frog here, his main thing is he kind of represents the grappling turrets without having to build one. So he's kind of a mobile grapple turret that you don't have to build. And these grapple turrets are something new in this expansion as well, which lets you steal enemies' armor and improve the spark. So it's like you're doing a damage to the enemy and also reinforcing your room at the same time. So it's kind of HP swing. So that's very useful. And he is basically one of these turrets that can just move around and do that from anywhere without even having to build him. So yeah, pretty cool. The characters are not super diverse in this game. It's not like you're playing an entirely different game when you play one versus the other. It's not like Spirit Island or Too Many Bones in asymmetry, but they do add a little bit of something special that they can do that switches up the gameplay. Similar to Pandemic, basically, where, you have somebody who's better at shooting, somebody who's better at piloting. And the ones I just detailed in this expansion are just a little bit more unique in their abilities. So you can see here the construction cards. This is just showing how many components are needed to build one of these things. And you can see there's new rooms here too. They cost 6 components, which is pretty costly. That's more expensive than anything at this point. And then there are some upgrades in the base game. This is a cardboard token. And so they've got minis here for these. And I know there's a standee for this one as well, just to help differentiate these things. The game is like pretty 3D if you buy all of the expansions, and so these flat tokens sort of blend in, and I think it's kind of a nice thing to, finish blinging out the game. They added these in. There's a couple more prosperity cards. These are items and gear, like I was saying earlier. There are items which are like one-time use things, and then gear, which are those permanent upgrades. And then finally, this is actually a pretty big thing. Because there are new construction cards, there's this whole display that takes advantage of vertical space a bit, and gives you a whole layout for all the things that you can build. And I think that's a little bit nicer, because previously we just had, I think, 5 cards, and you could just lay them flat, and it wasn't that big of a deal. But now that we have 12 different things we can build, this makes it much more practical from a table space perspective. And we get some thrusters. So 3D versions of these as well. The Prosperity Box add-on from the first campaign had these, and it looks like they're going to include both 2D cardboard tokens and the 3D miniatures in case you don't have that expansion, that Prosperity Box. And we'll talk about that later in the add-on section. But they're also including the miniatures in case you do have that. And then finally, we have this premium insert that helps, again, with table space and just with organization. And this should free up some space in the base game box. And I'm hoping that I can take all of the Prosperity Box stuff and put it into that free space and kind of get rid of that one, because it's a smaller box altogether. And I know this new expansion is the same size. We can kind of see it up here, right? It's the same size as the base game box. And here's that Prosperity Box, which is just, it's kind of a little smaller, and I don't know, I just would prefer to just get rid of this, but you really can't at this point because the base game doesn't have room to store what's in here. And then finally, we have 3 new missions, which I think the base game has like maybe 12 or something. Don't quote me on that, but 3 new missions is always welcome, and hopefully it'll take advantage of some of the new content in this game and the new upgraded rooms and that sort of stuff. And we'll get into the add-ons now. So at the very top, we have an updated neoprene playmat, where I think it's just a visual update from what they've said. There's a comment somewhere in the comments here that I looked up before that mentioned the only thing that really changed was just a visual redesign. So I think it's like functionally the same. It just might be different colors or might have moved some elements around. But they're saying that you don't necessarily have to get this new playmat. You won't be missing out if you have the current one. So that's the playmat. I do think it is pretty useful in just providing more theme. Like, I think this is a visually bright and beautiful game, and I think that having that playmat is kind of just builds on the experience. I think that's one of the strengths of this game. But of course, it is a playmat. It's not going to fit in the box, and so you need to take that into account. You have to store it somewhere. But yeah, I just think it helps kind of define where the different zones are and organize all of the components. The individual player mats, I'm not as big of a fan of necessarily. I just don't think they're that useful, but they will fit in the box since they are pretty small. But I find that these like cards here already are already kind of detailed enough to show where elements go, where it says like these are the gear and you have 3 slots for that, and then these are items over here. And so I don't necessarily need this, but if you want it, it's there for you. You know, again, it's just how deluxeified do you want this experience to be? And then the art book, from what I understand, this is going to just detail some behind the scenes of how the game was made. And you can see there's some like concept art on what the Spark, the ship, would look like. And I think this is actually pretty cool. This is definitely for super fans of the game. But I would honestly be intrigued to read this. But it's up to you whether or not. I mean, if you're just entering this game, I don't know if this is worth it to you. But if you're a returning backer and you love the world that they build here, it might be cool to get a peek behind the curtain. So yeah, we saw those prosperity cards earlier. There were only 5, and you know that's like a pretty easy thing for them to continue adding on with these stretch goals. So we've got some more there. We've got some more pages in that book. I think this is like the final token, cardboard token in the game. So making that plastic. I haven't actually come across these yet. We got some new zones. So in the game, these are like modifiers for where you're currently flying. So basic space has no modifiers, but an asteroid field requires you to manually pilot and take over. Otherwise, you're going to run into asteroids. And so if you don't take the piloting action, you're going to take some damage. And so there's a ton of these that, well, there's 6 in the base game. And so adding 3 new ones is, that's a pretty big increase. We have a lid to keep components in place, which is super awesome. And some new equipment cards. Okay, and then tons of upgrades to the app. So my experience with the app so far, like I said, has been pretty good. There have been a few hiccups. One time it did sort of crash, but we were able to immediately open it up again, and it saved our progress and everything, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. Like, there are going to be bugs in an app, but hopefully this new campaign will kind of reinvigorate the development lifecycle of it. And it seems like they're adding a ton of new features and stuff. And so it's something that they can continue to easily push updates to once the game is out. Like, it's way easier to do that than to patch a board game, as you all know. So yeah, they've had a history of updating this app, and I think that it works really well as of right now. It's one of the better apps I've used in a board game. And so, yeah, there's some new stuff that's going to make things more like visually telling. Some new achievements that are in the app, which is fun. I think the biggest thing really is this 5-player mode. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the higher player counts are actually where this game shines. I think it's fun to share the story together and just to have more options when you're planning things. And so I think a 5-player mode actually will work really well with this game, and I'm excited for that one. All right, I want to come all the way down here on the different pledge levels and talk you through them. So I'm going to go a little bit out of order, but I'm going to go in the order that makes sense to me. So first off, they added just the core game as a pledge level. So if you're interested in just kind of getting the game, this is probably the best way to do that. Who knows what the retail availability will be for this game. I don't think it was very available in the past. Like, I actually ordered the game from Arcada Studios' website and had it shipped over to the US from France. So I didn't see it really at any other retailer at this point. And so I think if you're interested in this game, this is probably the best way to lock down your copy and just make sure that you're getting it. And if you want, if you're interested in playing it but not sure about it, this could be a good way to go. I do want to say that in the base game, there is a ton of content, and notably there are 5 crew members, so you can take advantage of the 5-player mode, even with just the base game. Yeah, all right, so it says there are 13 missions in the base game, so that's pretty good for replayability. I've only played the first one, like I said. I'm not sure how different they are. I think it's usually you're going to be trying to cover an amount of distance. There's going to be aliens spawning and trying to prevent you, but there are tons of narrative choices that you have to make in the app that will change things up. And I even had an experience where I chose the same option both times. Like I said, yes to something, and a different result happened in both games. And I should say also, I have a full solo gameplay of this game up on my channel, and I spent a lot of time editing and making sure that it's very visually clear what's going on. Like, I have the iPad going through, streamed into my computer, and so it's not just being filmed by a camera. Basically, it's coming in through the computer and having the audio be streamed in, so you can get kind of a good experience of what the game is like. I also use Carl and Milo, who are the 2 Prosperity Box expansion characters, as well as all the Prosperity expansion. So if you're interested in understanding if that particular box is right for you, or just seeing if the game is right for you, I do teach it more in depth as we play along. And yeah, I'd highly recommend you check it out. I spent a lot of time putting that together. Hello, minimal editing Josh here, realizing that I forgot to talk about the Prosperity Box. And so I just wanted to cover that very quickly. What is this specific expansion and add-on? So the main thing that it adds, I guess it's the namesake of the box, is that it adds 25 new prosperity cards. I think in the base game there are 45, so this adds a considerable amount of more items and things that will shake up the gameplay experience. Also, these ones have a UV printing on them, so they're just a little more special, right? They have like a shininess to them that just makes them more desirable. Additionally, it adds poker chips for all of the help tokens. Instead of cardboard chips, these are just plastic, so they're just a little more premium feeling. And then, of course, it adds the 2 new characters here, Milo and Carl, who add their own gameplay, like their own abilities and stuff. So, like, Carl can be a turret. His ability is, you are a turret, and he's basically an upgraded turret that can plant himself in one of those, like, building spaces and just start fighting. From there, he starts blasting. And then Milo has the capability to re-roll defensive dice. When you take damage, you roll these armor dice, depending on how many armors are in those slots, and he lets you re-roll any misses if he's in that room. And so, yeah, they add some just more flexibility to the character selection. I think more characters is always good. And I think personally that this box is worth it at $20 if you're going to go all in on this game in general, or even if you're just getting the core box. This is a nice little quality of life upgrade. And it does add those thruster minis as well to the gameplay. And so, like I said, in my gameplay, I show off all these components and I play as these 2 characters so you can decide if it's worth your money. So yeah, we'll get back to the video. Next is the Galactic Pledge level. So this is just the new expansion, and this would be for folks who already have the base game and just want to add on just the expansion and don't need anything else. So I think this is this makes probably the most sense for someone who's returning rather than this other pledge level, Galactic Ultimate Pledge. This really only makes sense if you want these 2 optional items. You do save €7, I think, if you want the playmats and the art book. But like I said, the art book I think is for super fans, and these to me aren't that necessary or big of an upgrade, not like the regular playmat is. The next thing is the Commander Pledge, and so this is the gameplay all-in, and this would be the other one I'd probably recommend, especially if you're backing this for the first time. Like, my perspective when I'm backing a game is it's usually easier to resell it, even if I don't like it, if I have the all-in, the gameplay all-in at least. Maybe even more so the all-in, but I usually go for gameplay all-in. And so if you end up liking the game, you have the rest of it, and you don't have to track these down. It's going to be difficult to do so, like I said, because this is Gamefound exclusive, so we don't know if it's coming back or if it'll be available anywhere. Seems like it won't be. And same for that Prosperity Box. So personally, I would go for the gameplay all-in if you think you like this game, or you will like it, or you just want to check it out, because I think it'll be easier to turn around, especially when we talk about shipping, which, let's get down here, all the way at the bottom. Okay, so from a shipping perspective, I guess it's only $4 more, and so less of your money is going towards the shipping cost if you're backing the full pledge, the all-in, versus just the base game. And I'm assuming that the core game pledge will probably end up with the same shipping, since they are similar size box. But that's just a supposition that I'm making. And of course, all of this, I guess I was looking at France. I guess it's $2, €2 different. So even more so when you're looking at prices like this, right? Less of your money is going towards the shipping and more towards the actual product. So that's just my opinion. Even if you're first time going into this game, I'd probably go for the gameplay all-in. Also, I think having the character variety and all that stuff is is fun. And I think these Galactic upgrades are going to do a bunch for making the gameplay more variable each time, since you'll have more things to upgrade and you'll have to choose which rooms that you'll want to upgrade and which ones will be the most meaningful for the current mission. So yeah, everything here, of course, take it with a grain of salt. We don't know what the situation will be like. There was a previous update from Arcadis Studios in this campaign that when the tariff situation was at 54%, they said they were going to cover it. Obviously, things have changed since then. I'm not sure what the current plan is for them, but it seems like they're trying to do right by the backers and do what they can to eat the cost when it makes at least financial sense from their perspective. And then finally, we have the all-in pledge, and this includes literally everything, including some of the add-ons that we haven't talked about yet, where we have another set of dice, which could be very useful if you have especially 5 players. Just having another dice set to pass around the table is just a quality of life thing. I think these are only like €9, so that's up to you. I usually like to get another dice set. In fact, I bought that when I bought the game from them. And then this official dice tray, which is a neoprene mat. And they were kind enough to just put this in my order, even though I didn't order it. I'm not sure if that was a mistake or just something gracious they did. But I do have this dice tray. And yeah, I mean, it fits in the box. So it's a nice thing to have. I mean, you're probably going to want a dice tray with this game. So that's up to you. If you have another dice tray that you're using already, or you have a dedicated one, you obviously don't need this. I found it's a mouse pad material, like it's a thinner neoprene than something like Chip Theory games. I don't know if you have experience with them, but theirs are more like a scuba suit, and this one was more mouse pad material in terms of thickness. So that's just up to you. If you're going all in, of course, I think you're saving €35. So, you can look at it as if you're getting a few of these things for free. So if you're wanting the playmat and one of these other add-ons anyways, maybe it's worthwhile. But my recommendation is still the Commander Pledge, and consider adding on the playmat and the dice set if you want them. So that would be, 33 plus 125. So that's 158. And that's, €40 less, 30, whatever. It's math amount less. And those are the things that matter to me, I guess, as someone who's played the game, that I think would be the biggest quality of life upgrades if you want to, fully bling it out, or just get the gameplay all in, because there's so much bling in it already. You'll probably be fine. So that covers the overall campaign. I think this is, like I said, I think the strengths of this game are that it's very accessible and can be played with anyone. It's dripping with theme. It's visually beautiful, and it's just fun. So I've had a fun time with it. Like I said, the voice acting is really well done. The stories are goofy. It's quirky. It doesn't take itself seriously. And yeah, you can play with anyone. I think where it's limited is, it is a lighter game experience as well. So you need to factor that into account. Like, it's not as deep as some of the games I mentioned before, like Spirit Island or Too Many Bones, or other games like that. But yeah, it's not meant to be, right? It's supposed to be a lighter gameplay affair. And so I don't think this will ever be like your absolute top favorite game ever, because of the, just the depth in the game. But if you're a fan of things like Pandemic or other lighter games, Marvel United, those sorts of things that are just easy to get to the table, it's a fun time to experience with your friends. And especially if you've played some of those storytelling games that are just, like, I still have inside jokes about the game Freelancers, which was an absolute riot. And there's some goofy stuff in here too that I think is just fun to be a part of. And so yeah, that's really my overall thoughts about the game, and quick overall coverage of what it is, how it works, and my recommendations. Like I said, I just wanted to put this together really quickly because the campaign's almost ending, and I wanted to give my thoughts to you guys since I've played it now. And hopefully that was useful. And let me know what you think about this game if you've played it already, if you're going to be backing this one. I know it's a tumultuous time in terms of US crowdfunding. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.